Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. This is a bonus episode for viewers. We call this episode B14. 2019 is a banner year for celebrating transportation. 50 years ago, NASA transported astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the surface of the moon. Well, Armstrong landed that lunar module and was the first human ever to set foot on the moon. Buzz Aldrin was the second. I wasn't there to capture any video, but NASA certainly did, and our next content unit on Ramping Up Your English will be space exploration. We may start that unit as early as 2021. Stay tuned to RVTV Voices to see when this episode starts. And visit my website, letscreate.org, to learn when that new unit will begin. 2019 is also an important anniversary in the world of trains and railroads. This year is the 150th anniversary of the completion of the first Transcontinental Railroad in the United States. It's been that long since they drove that golden spike in at Promontory, Utah. Well, since our first unit on Ramping Up Your English is trains and railroads, I'm eager to share with you some rail journeys I've taken since that unit ended. Our journey was short in length, but it carried me and my wife Liz to an original section of the Transcontinental Railroad. That trip was in California. Today, we'll also share a California rail trip that brings us deep into the redwood forest. So climb aboard and let's get on for some great railroad adventures. The little remote town of Sunol is probably not the first place that comes to mind when thinking about the Transcontinental Railroad. This California depot, with its historic semaphore control signals, is one of two locations where people can board the Niles Canyon Railway. At Sunol, the tracks parallel a noisy state highway. According to Trains magazine, these control signals, which at one time were seen throughout the nation's railroads, are inoperable. They're for looks only. Here we look in the direction of Niles, waiting for the train to come around and enter the station. It's an event to be recorded on video. A hint of smoke, and then the faint sound of the whistle quickens our pulse. And here she comes, chugging around the bend. Niles Canyon Railroad offers weekend trips and excursions for special occasions, including a commemorative run with the steam engine Skookum from the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. By now, all the cameras are rolling at Sunol. This track was restored in 1988 after the line was abandoned and the track removed years earlier. This is not just any locomotive pulling the train. It's a restored steam locomotive. As it rounds the curve, we get to see the rest of the consist.
Sorry, I'm in the shot.
Looking back at that steam engine from the car with open sides, I was eager to see us move. We didn't have to wait long.
Good morning, everybody.
We're just down there to watch the train go.
Information about the train we'd like to share with you. Make your trip safe for tomorrow.
The clickety-clack of the wheels brought familiar excitement. On the Niles Canyon Railroad, you exit the town of Sunol quickly and soon find yourself in the countryside. with some spectacular scenery. The Niles Canyon section of the Transcontinental Railroad was completed a few months after the famous ceremony at Promontory, Utah. It was this section that realized Lincoln's vision of rails stretching from sea to shining sea. As we approached a road crossing, I noticed the train whistle was not that of the steam engine.
Opening of the Militia Boardwalk Railroad ferry service taking time.
We're pulled in the Niles direction by a diesel electric. On the side of the train where we were riding, Niles Canyon is ringed with majestic oak trees. This oak savanna seemed endless. It reminded me of the importance of oaklands, importance to wildlife and historically to people who subsisted on the acorns produced by these aged trees. The opposite side of the car also featured some spectacular views of forested hills. Back to the scenery on our side. These steep hillsides reminded me that we were in a canyon. At one time, there were two railroads operating in Niles Canyon, Southern Pacific and Western Pacific, each on different sides of Alameda Creek. Our view of nature was interrupted by a more mechanical scene. Here we enter Brightside Yard. We get to see locomotives and cars from a variety of railroads here. Note the Santa Fe caboose and the Western Pacific locomotive. The Western Pacific locomotive reminds me that Niles Canyon was once part of the route of the California Zephyr, an epic long-distance train run by 3 railroad companies between Chicago and San Francisco. Brightside Yard is where Niles Canyon Railroad stores its equipment and where important restoration work is done on historic rail stock. This is one of the shops. On the side, you can see strings of Christmas lights. Niles Canyon Railroad runs the Train of Lights for holiday passengers. In 2018, tickets sold out in 4 hours for the 18,000 riders. There's always some restoration work going on here. A new locomotive shop is planned for the future. Here's hoping that the Niles Canyon Railway has a bright side future. Now, let's just enjoy the ride. Hillsides of vetch added a splash of color other than green. The contrail in the sky reminded us that trains were once the main means of distant travel.
We're going over a freeway. Well, not really a freeway. Urban arterial.
They're blowing their horns.
I'll be darned.
This is the railroad station at Niles, California. And this is the town of Niles, a charming little town crowded with tourists. It's the turning around point for the return to Sunol through Niles Canyon. From the old Niles Depot, we learned that we were not the only train to pass here. Back aboard our own train, we saw another Amtrak commuter train, a train in a hurry to move people. Now preparing for our return trip to Sunol, we saw that the head-end power was the steam engine I was so excited about. Very slowly and gently, we started moving forward. The tracks on the side veered off for the commuter train. We headed for the canyon. We looked back to see Niles getting smaller and smaller as we left it behind. Niles is where most of those silent movies with trains were filmed. Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, all worked here in the early days of making movies. The depot receding from us is now a museum. This curve gave us a great view of that steam locomotive taking us back into the canyon. Seems I wasn't the only videographer. This is the same crew that captured the train's arrival in Sunol. The train is not the only historical thing on this route. Some of these bridges were built over 100 years ago. In April, the view from this side of the train was nothing but green. Looking out on this side of the canyon, the hillside is heavily covered with California live oak trees. We can also see the steam lingering in the air from the locomotive. Rolling back into Sunol, we find the videographer walking trackside. We were soon walking the trackside too, finding the engineer who took us on such a joyful ride. Here's the boiler and the rest of the locomotive. A steam locomotive is a noisy machine, but a fascinating one. This locomotive is a Shea 262T, part of the collection of the Pacific Locomotive Association, a nonprofit from Pickering Lumber Company. On this day, a service dog is being trained to stay focused around this noisy, hissing engine. Now it slowly backs away, probably headed for the shops at Brightside Yard. We have to thank old number 4, as well as the countless dedicated volunteers, for such a beautiful ride. California has its share of steam locomotives and excursion railroads. One of them is the railroad at Roaring Camp in Santa Cruz County. The old water tower looks out over this historic logging camp turned tourist center for train enthusiasts and a wedding venue. Some pumping action is needed to send maintenance of way crews on this railroad. And the water tank is not there just for looks. Steam needs water, and a steam locomotive needs lots of it. Tank filled, we're on our way. On our way where? Into the redwood forest.
Now, the ability to survive fires is one reason why these trees get to be taller than the Statue of Liberty of New York City in some cases, including that granite pedestal it stands on.
Here are some of those trees the conductor told us about. If you love the sound of a steam engine whistle, this trip won't disappoint. On this trestle, our train climbs above the forest floor. The redwood forest is the stage for this drama, and the trees are the stars of this show. Pulled by lucky number 7, we curve into the cathedral grove of this old-growth forest. Steam mixed with forest canopy, that's the view when looking up. Number 7 is a bit impish here. The smoke and steam send down a cascade of redwood needles and other tree debris. Only feet away, we pass the thick-barked redwood trunks. In some stretches, we get really close to the trees. The locomotive is working hard. We're on a steep grade here. At one point, we start to see a railroad bridge in the forest. I'm thinking we'll cross it eventually. We all start looking up at this bridge and notice that the timbers look singed, as in a fire. The conductor explained that the bridge was built to have the train navigate a sharp curve, but it had caught fire, and we were not going on it. Instead, the train started backing up. The fireman threw a bucket of sand into the firebox to clean out the stack. This resulted in black, sooty smoke billowing out the stack. They do this when we're going backward so that the sand and soot doesn't settle on the passengers in the open car like us. The bridge would have formed a loop where tracks cross over themselves, but without the bridge, we back up. As soon as the tracks are switched, the engineer eases us forward. By this switching of tracks, we are able to make a turn that would be impossible without this maneuver. Crossing the tracks that would have taken us to the bridge, we get a few heavy bumps. By now, our car is past the switch. Once these bumps are behind us, the engineer ramps up the speed. Soon, we're again heading forward, roaring through the redwood forest and being showered with detritus from the trees. Take a look at this bench. It was clean when we started. Now it holds little pieces of the redwood canopy, lots of detritus. Let's see how much more will rain down on us as we steam through the redwood forest.
Now, Roy,
Here's a look at the fireman. He's the crew member who builds up the steam pressure in the locomotive.
so the firemen will engage the valve which lets hot water hot comes out of the very bottom of the boiler where the cruddy stuff tends to build up. So that's how the fireman keeps the boiler clean.
And here we see the energy that creates all that steam. If Locomotive 7 is the star of this show, and believe me, it is, the superstar is the engineer. So while this engineer was happy to answer questions, I'm always a bit nervous talking to a superstar. But I built up the courage.
So when you guys are going up that grade, it sounds like it's giving it all it's got, huh?
Well, that, and if I open it up too hard, it'll start working water.
Oh.
Plus, today, every needle in the world is on the track, so the damn thing slips like crazy if you're not careful.
It wasn't long before that engineer got us back on the tracks.
All aboard!
Thanks for watching this bonus episode of Ramping Up Your English. Visit my website for all episodes of Ramping Up Your English, including bonus videos. Visit letscreate.org. I want to thank my director and volunteer crew for making this bonus video possible, and I want to thank you for watching. I'll soon be back with our next numbered episode of Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.